Hey guys, what's up? Public back with another video, and today I'm going to talk about Night Fae. Specifically, should you swap to being the Night Fae? I know I haven't made a video in quite a while. Things have kind of been very fluctuating since my last video. Frankly, I've just been so busy with everything, including real life stuff, work stuff, and then all this wild things going on. But I wanted to make this video to address a lot of the questions that I've been getting over Twitter, on Discord, whatever, about people feeling like should I swap? Does it make sense to swap? What's the point? So in this video, we're going to go over all that stuff you need to know. All right, let's get started. All right, so should you swap to Night Fae? The answer is sure, if you want to. I don't want people to get the wrong impression here. Night Fae is a very strong covenant. In fact, it worked out better than I thought. I think a lot of us thought it would do inside of Castle Nathria specifically. Enough of the fights just make sense for it there, and this is mostly just RNG based on the fight timing, right? I've poured through thousands of logs looking for kind of data on this stuff, and it's very possible to get a 1% parse as a Night Fae just as much as it is any other covenant. So it's not like swapping to Night Fae is going to magically give you more damage, right? In fact, it could be no damage, it could be less damage. It's a very fluctuating covenant ability, right? Which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of us, including myself, did not go for Night Fae. Just because, the damage that it's going to do changes drastically based on that fight timing, right? Are you getting one extra Void Form throughout the fight with the Night Fae CDR? Are you getting two? Who knows? And in fact, up until just a few short weeks ago, it was also giving you cooldown reduction on Shadow Fiend as well, right? Which was definitely inflating how good it was in certain fights. But again, on a fight like Shriekwing, for example, where it lets you eke out an extra Void Form before Shriekwing actually goes into his phase, it's a very large DPS increase when you can pull it off relative to other things, right? But that's only that good because of the way the fight is designed there, right? On other fights, it's much less impactful. This just really depends on what you're doing, right? So because of that, you're going to see a lot of great Night Fae parses for any of those fights that really make sense for that, like Shriekwing, Side and Athreus or Generals also come to mind as well, some good ones. But again, this doesn't mean the other covenants are necessarily bad, right? In fact, I would argue that especially Necrolord or Venthyr are much harder to mess up. Which could be something you'd prefer on like a progression type boss. Now, again, if you go look at Warcraft logs, you're going to see great parses for all four covenants as a Shadow Priest. I think Shadow is maybe even still the only actual spec to kill Mythic Denathrius as all four covenants. Just as a testament to tell you that Shadow can make it work regardless. So don't swap to Night Fae with the expectation that it's going to make all of your damage great. If used correctly and the fight timings make sense, you're going to pull off some great numbers. Perhaps some of the best numbers you could get for a Covenant ability as a Shadow Priest. But the thing here is that doesn't mean another Covenant wouldn't also be good, right? The difference when we're talking about if we look at just the Covenant abilities is actually very, very tiny. The Night Fae ability especially, again, very, very small increase to your damage. You're talking about single-digit % increases to Void Form uptime. Nothing that's going to be super, super substantial. Now, that being said, again, fight time's going to change on that. Now, what Night Fae does particularly well that I think is definitely boosting its overall damage output, and the reason why you're seeing a lot of top players swap to it, its soulbinds are frankly very, very strong. And most importantly, in my opinion, the soul shape ability for the Night Fae Covenant is probably worth whatever amount of DPS you're going to get from the Covenant. And I think a lot of players looked at it and said, I don't really need the Necrolord Shield. I don't need the Kyrian Vial. I don't need the Venthyr Teleport. But having the Soul Shape Blink, that's pretty awesome. And you could argue that could be a better DPS increase than any of the Covenant abilities combined. And I think what you're seeing is the utility you get from having Soul Shape, the other Soulbinds that augment that, and in general just having Nia's Grove Invigoration Soulbind trait be a very strong one, as well as some other things that Nia can offer. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of Shadow Priest PvE focused players swapping to that. And again, if that's appealing to you, I'd say go for it, right? If that's especially what you like to do. But again, you want to be careful about, it's not going to be a magic thing that's magically going to give you more damage, but it could be a playstyle that you enjoy more. So keep that in mind. Don't feel like Night Fae is bad by any means, right? I don't want anyone to think that. Now, let's kind of reverse this question. Hopefully that's helped kind of answer, should you go Night Fae, right? In general, if you want to, go for it, but don't feel like you have to. Now, again, with the mastery bug fix that happened, you saw a kind of a revelation, or so to speak, of because you're getting more Void Form uptime, If you're pairing that up with Talbot's Stratagem, you are getting more Mind Blast out, so effectively you're also slightly buffing that legendary's value from what it was before. So again, all this kind of accumulated together to making Night Fae a very strong pick for a Covenant. And frankly, at the start of the expansion was kind of underpicked as a Covenant, I would say, by most Shadow Priest players. I think, again, it's not something that should be picked by everyone, in my opinion, but could make sense for a lot of you that care about that kind of PvE content. Now, I do want to kind of flip this for Dungeons as well. Dungeons, I think, is a bit more of a maybe clear-cut pick for Night Fae, but again, this will greatly depend on your group that you're running with. With Night Fae, basically, the idea is you're getting more Void Form uptime, and you can kind of use packs to kind of, while you're walking between pack A to pack B, you're getting Void Form back. All that stuff is great. And with Night Fae, that just makes sense, right? You're just getting more Void Forms, which is great. Whereas the other Covenant abilities, none of them are particularly great, especially on Trash. Unholy Nova is okay if they all get hit by the ability, but again, getting more Void Form uptime in dungeons is generally kind of universally good. Is it going to be a good DPS increase on bosses? More often, no, but again, this is where the soulbinds are going to take into account here, right? You're going to get very big Grove Invigoration stacks, so even using Fey Guardians without getting more Void uptime specifically can give you a big increase there. So I think, again, easily one of the best Covenants for Mythic Plus, especially when you compare it to something like Venthyr or Kyrian, I think. But again, between Night Fae and Necrolord, both very strong picks for dungeons. Now, that being said, I am still Venthyr. I don't have any plans of switching out of Venthyr right now, and I'm doing that for several reasons. One of them is actually for the dungeon strength. And you'll all kind of be like, well, wait a second, you just said Night Fae is really good for dungeons. Why wouldn't you go that? Well, it's because my group doesn't have a Venthyr, right? The group that I push keys with the most, I'm the only Venthyr in that group. So if I were to swap out of Venthyr, that means on Sanguine Depths and Halls of Atonement, we don't get those Venthyr benefits. It's a very small thing, but if you're looking at the value of Venthyr, especially in Halls of Atonement, you get so much value out of that it's not worth for me to swap right now, because we want to make sure those keys are kind of universally easy. Now, if someone else eventually swaps to Venthyr, I might change that, but for now, that's what I'm going to do. Just to kind of reiterate the small difference that is the actual Covenant choice. Some of these utility things like Soul Shape or controlling a gargoyle inside of Halls of Atonement, like those are way more valuable, in my opinion, to the overall Covenant choice than anything else. So keep that in mind. Okay, before I end this video, to kind of cap off this question of, should you swap to Night Fae? The last thing I want to bring up is, while Night Fae is very seemingly good for Shadow and like PvE environments, that's basically the only thing it's really good at, right? If you look at PvP, if you look at like open world content, especially, like you're not going to get much value out of the Night Fae ability or Soulbinds, frankly. It's really just Soul Shape in those environments where things are good. And that's kind of something you definitely want to keep in mind, right? If you like to off-spec, if you like to PvP, Night Fae might not be the right choice for you. So keep that in mind. Again, you're probably seeing a lot of Disc Priests in the MDI, especially being Night Fae. I think, again, a lot of that's because the value there is kind of in that specific environment they're doing. They can give that CDR to someone else. They could give whatever other benefits to other players, and that kind of evens out the game because the Disc Priest isn't really there for max throughput, healing, or whatever. But I think, again, you'll get a raiding environment from a Night Fae as like a Holy or Disc Priest. Probably not the best Covenant choice there. If you look at Shadow Priest inside of like raided battlegrounds or whatever, again, Night Fae definitely not the choice there. You would rather be Venthyr or Mind Games. And so that gap between Shadow Priest players that are Venthyr and some other Covenant in PvP, that's a very large gap, much larger in fact than the gap of Night Fae and the other Covenants in PvE. In fact, there it's like they're very, very close, very almost equal. So I would say you definitely want to look at this question of like, what content do you value the most doing? What do you want to optimize your priest for, right? Do you only care about PvE? Okay, then yeah, maybe Night Fae makes sense. Maybe Necrolord also makes sense, right? Do you like to sometimes off-spec as Disc and still be, have competitive options? Do you like to randomly, PvP to get those great PvP vault options? Maybe it's worth it there to go Venthyr like I have to kind of get the best of both worlds in that situation, right? Again, these are all questions that you want to ask when making that Covenant decision, and something you should definitely keep in mind. Again, like I've already mentioned, I'm still Venthyr. I don't have any plans of changing right now, and that's for primarily because I do off-spec. I PvP semi-often, especially recently, or at least I'm trying to more and more, and I'm the only Venthyr in my dungeon push group. Am I losing a little bit in some of the other areas? Yeah, but not enough for me to lose out on significant chunks of damage, right? I'm still topping the meters on some progression fights. I'm getting really good pulls still. It's not like my damage is anywhere close to bad, right? most of the time your damage is more about the skill of the person. Did you get mechanics, and not about your covenant choice, at least as a Shadow Priest, so keep that in mind. So again, if you guys want to swap, I would say go for it, but don't feel like you should be obligated by any means. And I think at this point, especially depending on your Castle Nathria progression, it probably doesn't make sense to hamper yourself by changing covenants right now, because you go back to, you know, having one renown, you have to spend all that time grinding it up, which, you know, you can do in like maybe a week, 2 weeks, get back up to where you were, but that's a lot of time investment for that. And especially with the next patch coming just around the corner very soon, I would expect some soulbind changes, maybe a new legendary, a new tier set, which could very easily change everything that I just said in this video. So maybe it's worth holding off just until that, but you know, hey, you guys do what you want to do. Hopefully this video has helped answer your questions. If you have more, feel free to leave a comment or ask in Discord, whatever else I can do to help out, guys. All right, guys, big thanks for watching. Big shout out to all the patrons that are supporting me. I know I've been kind of absent on YouTube lately. Again, I'm trying my best here to make sure you guys get the right information, the right content. Hopefully with the new patch announcement that's coming with BlizzCon Online, we'll have some more stuff to talk about. There's a lot of videos that I want to make. Don't think that I'm not making them because I don't like this. It's just been very, very busy with work. So doing my best to keep up with all the great stuff that I want to make. Hopefully you guys are enjoying what I have so far. Again, big thanks to everyone, and thank you for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one.